Do you know the mulch man? Because I do. And he brought me all this mulch. Let's take a second to talk about this mulch. So all this mulch behind me, it was free. It came from a very nice neighbor who did a bunch of tree work a few years ago, and these chips, wood chips, have just kind of been hanging out in the front part of his property, and he let us take them away. Mulching is very, very important for my garden, where I garden. I'm in north central Texas. It's a zone 8. And when I say that the summers are hot and dry, I mean brutally hot and dry. And mulch helps do a few things for your garden. One of the most important things that mulch will do for your garden is regarding moisture retention in the soil. So if I have my drip system that is running in the morning, let's say around 5 o'clock in the morning, it runs, and then I don't have the ground covered with mulch, well, by noon or 1 o'clock when it's 105 degrees, that sun is hitting the exposed soil and it's just zapping all of the moisture back out of the soil so that the roots can't utilize it. But if I have mulch covering the soil, especially a good thick layer of mulch, it keeps the moisture down in the soil for much longer so that plants can utilize it. Not only that, but it keeps the soil temperature cooler. One thing that the Texas sun will do in July and August is just roast roots, and so many plants send roots all out just below the surface of the soil, and they're not that far from the sun's very intense heat rays. And if you have that mulch covering them, it keeps them much cooler and keeps the plant much less stressed out during the summer heat. If we take a look at this mulch, it does have a lot of bigger chunks in it, but I'm not really worried about that. I've used this mulch from him for the second year in a row now, and when I put it down in the spring, which is my preferred time to put mulch down, it is almost all decomposed and gone by fall or winter. And when these pieces of wood are breaking down, it's releasing nutrients back into the soil, it's improving the structure of my soil. It's just doing, I can't overstate the benefits of mulching heavily. And if you're worried about the mulch going on top of your perennials that are asleep right now, herbaceous perennials that have gone to sleep all the way back down to the surface of the soil, and then they grow from that point back up. If you're worried about covering them, please don't be worried about that when it comes to mulch like this. This is very lofty. We're not talking about 3 or 4 inches of really heavy wet compost. The plants will find their way up through this compost or through this mulch, these wood chips, just fine. They will not be bothered by it at all. And a lot of this does look kind of dry and large up top, but when you turn this pile, even after it's only been sitting for like a year or so, it really breaks down into some good stuff. Look at that. That's the bottom of his mulch pile. So all this is very, very, very good stuff for the garden, and I'm gonna be spreading some of it today, but first I have a different chore over here that I need to get done. I bought some bare root plants and I would like to pot those up. I'm a big time sucker for a bare root plant, and that's because it saves me so much money. I can find some really cool perennials in these bare root bins, and by bare root bins I mean the things that are set up right now at Home Depot and Lowe's with like the dahlia tubers and the elephant ears and all these things that are like plants in bags basically. And you can get a lot of plants for not a lot of money. Let me show you what I got at Home Depot the other day. Here's my bag from Home Depot. Uh-oh, excuse the barking. The garbage men are here and it's very exciting for the dogs. These are some of the things I got. I got a hollyhock. Ooh, it's windy today. A hosta, 3 in there. And then this one I am super excited about are all these liatris corms in here. There's 50 of them in here, and I love liatris. I think it's so pretty. And then I got crocosmia, and I've never grown crocosmia before, but figured I would give it a try because those are such pretty colors. Today what I need to do is get these all put in pots. These would all probably be fine with just being planted out directly in the garden, But the thing is, I'm not sure when we're gonna get rain again, and these are gonna need consistent moisture while they get going. So I'm gonna put them all in pots, and once they kind of get settled in and produce some roots here in 3 or 4 weeks, I'll put them out in the areas of the garden where I want them to live. One thing I do like to do for some of these bare root plants is soak them before I pot them up. If you think about the things that this plant or this bare root has been through, it came from wherever it was growing on and put in this bag and then on a truck, and then it sat in the Home Depot on the shelf. And while it is looking pretty good, it has that green growth there, this plant has been under a little bit of stress and these roots are looking fairly dried out. So I'm going to soak it in this. It's just water and fish emulsion, very diluted. I'm going to let it soak in this for about 30 minutes while I pot up all my other stuff that is more like corms. Those liatris are called corms. They're not bare roots like this. So I'm going to go ahead and pot up those liatris while these soak. That in there. This is my hollyhock. My roots, there should be 3. Oh, they're all rubber banded together. That's kind of convenient. Those in there. Let them swim around in that. And I always throw away the stuff in the bags. I'm not going to use that to pot them up because I just don't really know where this came from or if it has disease or bugs or whatever in it. So I toss this stuff. This is how I get my liatris pre-sprouted, and I'm basically just going to pot them up into these little pots that I save when I buy plants every spring and summer, and even get these trays when you buy the plants also. If you buy more than one, go ahead and put them in the trays that the garden center has. Sometimes they put them underneath the little display benches and you can grab one and take your plants home in it and then reuse it over and over again. They're so handy for things like this. And I'm just going to fill each of these little pots with soil. I dump out my bagged potting soil into this bigger bucket just so that it's a little bit easier for me to deal with than with a big, heavy, wet bag of potting soil. And I got this rounded scoop from Drip Depot, and it's been really nice. Obviously just fits really well down into each pot. So I'm gonna fill 2 trays just like this with this soil so that I can get my liatris in here and it can go ahead and get to sprouting. Here's my liatris corms, and this is what I was telling you guys about. This is called a corm, and it says bulb on the package, I know that, but liatris grow from what's called a corm. And you can see that this is the bottom of the corm where the roots are coming out, and this is the top where we already have some growth, and that was why I picked this package. There were some packages of these corms that weren't growing at all, but I was glad that they packaged it in this clear plastic because I could clearly see through that these were good and healthy and already starting to show some growth. So what I'm going to do is just pop 2 or 3 in each of these little pots. I have 20 pots here and probably about 50 bulbs, so I'll do 2 or 3 per. And what I'm doing is just pre-sprouting them, and here in 3 or 4 weeks I'll plant them out in the garden. I'm not putting these directly in the ground because I don't want to have to worry about their moisture. They're going to need consistent moisture while they get going, and I don't want to be trying to find every single liatris corm that I put in the ground and trying to make sure that it gets watered. So I will just pot these up just like this and get them going for here in a few weeks. Here's the crocosmia. Like I said, I've never grown crocosmia before. This is what they look like in the bag. And I'm just going to reuse these little 6-packs. I think those used to have petunias in them, but I'm going to pre-sprout them so I can get a look at whether these are viable or not. I have a hard time telling if I've never planted one before. I don't see any obvious signs of growth on these little guys. They look like little onions, but the planting card says to put them 2 inches down. So just pop one in each of these. That doesn't look super promising. It looks kind of dried out. I'll just pop one in each of these and just kind of hope for the best. At the end of the day, what am I out? $6. But if it does work out and all of these grow well, then I have 12 plants for $6, which really can't be beat. Can't be beat. Those liatris that I just got done potting up, there was 50 in there, and that cost me 50 of them for $14.98. So you do the math on that one. Pretty cheap, especially for a perennial. Liatris is so tough, very drought tolerant, beautiful late summer, early fall show. Butterflies, love it. Just super, super tough. Have high hopes for this crocosmia though, because the picture is really pretty and I need more yellows and oranges. I don't tend towards yellows and oranges. I tend towards pinks and purples. So it'd be good to mix it up with these. That's that. I just got one little baby one left over. These look kind of shriveled, so I probably will give these a good drink right away. Just give everything else a drink here also. It's been very, very windy today. That tends to really dry out these plants, stress them out a little bit. Give them some extra water. Let me show you guys one of these little perennials that I started from seed, I think back in December. You can tell that it is looking kind of worn out just from being in the wind and being in the sun. The temperature here is so different than it was even just a week ago. Today the high is 72, so it is a little bit of a shock for them, but I can tell these poor guys are probably just really ready to get out of these pots. He's ready to go in the ground and grow. We're almost there, just a few more weeks. Time to pot up our hosta and our hollyhock. These have been soaking for a quick minute. We're going to get them out of their rubber bands and into these pots. I already have them all filled with soil. I'm supposed to have allegedly 3 of each. I have found that sometimes these bags don't have exactly the number of roots that they say they're supposed to, or like if there's supposed to be 3 roots, 2 of them will look super duper and one of them will look kind of like crap, and I'm kind of suspecting that might be what's going on with this hollyhock. But then again, I only paid like $5 for these, so I'm not too concerned about it. But just holding this one right here, do you see how it's giving and it's black? Those aren't desirable signs in plants. So we'll get these rubber bands off and see what we got, and then I'll pot them up in these guys and show you afterward. Rubber bands off, and it looks like, oh look, there are 3 really good ones. Y'all see that? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All of them with growth on them. I'm really pleased about that. And look at the root system. I mean, those are nice looking hosta. And there were 3 in here. I want to say, now that I think about it, they were $9.98, but that's still a great deal for 3 perennials, especially hosta. Like if you go to the garden center in the spring and summer, I'm not kidding, I've seen hostas for like $25. Obviously those are big, bushy, and leafed out, but all I'm out in this case is just these pots I already had and some potting soil. So these are supposed to be blue, which I'm told the blue ones prefer more shade, and I have a great spot for these if so. So let's get these potted up. I'm just gonna take some soil out, fan these roots out just a little bit. This may seem like kind of a tight fit. I'm not super worried about it. These aren't going to live in here for very long. I just want to get them, I want to be able to keep a close eye on them. That's why I'm putting them in these pots. They're not going to live in here for more than like 3 or 4 weeks before I go set them out where they're going to live. So just need to get the roots covered and moist so they can begin growing. The soil will warm up and they'll start really taking off here in no time. And what I'm doing when I pot each one up, for something that has got such a healthy root system as this, what I don't want to do is just kind of like smack them in there like that. I fan the roots out somewhat, and then I come in here into the pot and I make like a little mountain of soil, and then I fan the root out and put the point, kind of fan it over the top of that little soil mountain that I made down in there. And then I put the soil all around that. Don't be super worried about the depth at which you're burying if you're potting these up to get them going just before spring. But when you put them in their permanent location, you don't want to bury the crown of this plant very far. This is the crown of the plant here, where the growth meets the root system. I don't want to bury that. It can cause rot issues when it goes into its permanent home. Here we are, all done. These 2 are the hollyhocks, and I'm sure that y'all can see the difference between these 2. This one's growth looks pretty green. That root was very firm to the touch. This one almost looks slimy. I don't know what we're gonna get out of that, but I'm willing to give it a try. This one I'm not willing to give it a try. There's nothing going on in there, so that's fine. These are our hosta. Looking good. So I'll just put these out over there with all the other stuff that I have cooking, and we'll let them do their thing. The other project that I want to tackle today is a new flower bed. We're putting in a new flower bed right by our front gate, and we're both very excited about it because it looks pretty to have something right by the road when people drive by your house all the time. And we also want to be able to give consistent water to a live oak that we have in this area. And I marked the shape of this new flower bed probably about a week ago with marking paint. And I'm glad I did, because I had to live with the way that it looked for a couple days, and I don't like it. I'm gonna change it. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys what it will look like, and then I'm gonna start removing the grass. And I'm probably gonna remove most of the grass by hand in this case. I don't wanna bring in a tiller. I'm not opposed to tilling for a brand new flower bed. I don't till once the flower bed is established. It's just not the way I like to garden. Some people can, and that's fine. But I want to try to pull up as much of this grass for the new flower bed as I can by hand, because I'm kind of concerned that if I bring a tiller in here, I could damage the live oak's root bed, and I don't want to do that. So I'm gonna try to get most of it up the old fashioned way, but let me show you guys what shape I'm gonna go for. This was the shape. Hopefully you guys can see that. All this orange stuff, that's marking paint. So I'm gonna bring it in somewhat over here and then make it just a little bit longer over here. I'm not digging the triangle thing. Not really sure what I was thinking, but I'm just gonna change it up with the marking paint really quick, edge it out, and then I'm gonna start pulling up all the grass by hand and see how far I can make it today. This is going to be a very tedious process, so I'm just going to get it done. It is probably going to take me a couple of hours to get all this up with a shovel and by hand, but that's okay because it's a beautiful day. We're in Texas, it's 72 degrees in February, so let's make the most of it and get some stuff done. As usual, I have wildly underestimated the amount of time it will take me to do a particular project. I haven't gotten very far, but I have to give it a break for the day, so let me show you guys what all I was able to accomplish. This is kind of where we wound up for today. I was able to get the edge in by about 6 inches all the way around. You can see it goes all the way around the backside there, and then I cleared most of the Bermuda and weeds just from this portion. So this weekend I'll finish this part out and I'll come in and mulch it really heavily so that all the weed seeds that I just buried in here don't germinate to such a high degree that it becomes more of a problem. I want to get it covered pretty quick. So I'll tackle that later, but for now, this is how it's looking. That is going to do it for me out here for today, though. It has been a long one. You think that you're in good gardening shape until February hits, and then you go out to do a garden thing and you realize how much endurance that you've lost over the last couple months of winter, but that's okay. We'll get it back, and I will see you guys in the next video.